So we're going to start slowly. Hi, my name is Stephanie. I'm here with Dolly Mesher and Alexi to present to you the reality of our work in Nunavik. If you don't know yet where is Nunavik, we'll get to that surely enough. So the presentation is about, doesn't switch. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So during the presentation, all the pictures are taken in Puvernituk mostly, so it's real pictures, not Google one. So you'll have a better idea of where physically we're working. Also, if you have questions throughout the presentation, don't hesitate. It's going to be way more dynamic. So yeah. What we're going to talk today, we're going to see, of course, the Inuit culture, the history at first. Then we're going to talk about Iswa Civic Treatment Center. See the prevention promotion work from Inuit Civic Health Center, which is my position. Then the second line in addiction will be talked mostly by Alexi. We're going to talk about the challenges of working in addiction in Nunavik, what is needed as development to, and we'll conclude with a little open word. Okay? So I'm going to pass the speech to my coworker Dolly for the history and culture.
I'm not gonna go thoroughly in each point, but I just wanted to go through the experiences and the history that my region's been through, and I'm not showing these to show you. Some people start to view it as like the excuses, but these are realities. So it's for me, it's important to go through them. First, I wanted to just go show everyone like where's Nunavik, because we get mistaken a lot for Nunavut, which is not Nunavik. Nunavik we're above the 55th parallel. We're in Quebec. We're on all the coast of the Quebec region, 14 communities. The population is about like 14,000 in all this 14 region. That's where me, Alexi, and Stephanie work in Puvirnituk. It's on the Hudson coast, and they're covering the whole 7 communities on the Hudson coast. So I'll go a bit over the history of my region with just to show a bit that what kind of clientele we're working with, and this history is very taboo subjects for our clients, so nobody's really talking about it. Only very recently people are starting to open up about it. So the first encounters were missionaries, the assimilation to our assimilation to Christianity, opening of the trading post, identification disc system. This disc system was E8, E9, E7 numbers given by the government because they couldn't pronounce Inuit names properly, their names. So a lot of people a bit older than me still have their E8 numbers, which is like dehumanizing. Residential schools in our region are my people went through residential school too. Federal government relocation to Grisfjord and Resolute Bay. This was when the government relocated families from the communities further up north, promising them abundance of game, food, that the land was better there. And when they were landed there, it was very barren land. Hauswituk, meaning the land that never melts. So that, of course, the TB, going through TB, Inuit were being sent down. Some Inuit never made it back home, their parents not knowing where their children were buried. The dog slaughters in beginning of the 1950s, Inuit were nomadic, and this was government ordered as well. As you know, Inuit traveled by dog sled, and this was pulling off the role of the male in the providing for his whole family. So that was also a disconnect of their identity. And still today, there's neglect of patients who are seeking medical treatment. You can say it's like Tylenol epidemic in our communities, because when we're seeking medical treatment, the diagnosis is always like, just take Tylenol, just take Tylenol. And so this gives, it's hard to go seek help. Even for me, who is a stable person, it makes me not want to seek help from the medical. There was a death in 2021 in our community. The male had an accident, and he was trying to call the on-call nurse, saying that he has abdominal pain. And again, told to take Tylenol, didn't even get admitted to the hospital. The next morning, he was found dead. So like Joyce Ishaquan's experience is not very different than ours. We're living through that as well. So I'll go over the obstacles that impede quality of life for Inuk living in Nunavik. Overcrowded housing is 49%, often 3 generations living in the same housing. It's very common to see a 2-bedroom house with the grandmother, grandfather, the young couple, and their children inside the same house. So there's absolutely no safe space. Approximately 60% of the population is under the age of 25. So that's a lot of young parents living through all this intergenerational trauma. It's you're not taught properly how to parent healthily. So it's a big job that we need to do. The increasing demand in mental health services in our region is very high as well. There is very rare access to finding counselors who are specialized in trauma and offering care to mental health patients. Virtual care has many obstructions. Our internet is horrible. We cannot, even if we want to see a psychologist or anything, the internet just cuts off constantly. So it's like, that's not even an option. The lack of intervention space, if and when the client needs the mental health service in a confidential space, Me working for Isuak Civic, the infrastructures in our communities are lacking. So it's it's really hard to have a confidential space. The existing, and I'll talk about Isuak Civic a bit right now, existing availability of maximum spots is 54 guests per year at the recovery center in Kuujjuaq. Isuak Civic, the recovery center is only in one community out of the 14. Over 90 people are on the waiting list for guests to receive the service. That means we're 2 years plus behind to fill the need of the demand at this recovery center. For potential guests at Isuak Civic have lost their lives during their waiting period. Last year, I had a woman who was 1 week into entering the recovery center, and unfortunately, she passed away right before she could get in. So all the intervention requires collaboration with professionals from the South. This causes so much disconnect, and you don't understand, like they cannot talk in their own language about their experience, how they're feeling, and obviously having no trust in the system due to historical traumatic events. People have no trust in the system. So it is very hard for somebody to get better when they cannot even make the first step into requesting the kind of services that they need. This is where I work. Isuak Civic Recovery Center. It's not traitement, it's recovery center. This Isuak Civic Recovery Center is in Kuujjuaq. The building is very small right now. It can only hold, located in Kuujjuaq, it can only hold nine beds. So the rooms are like very cramped, two beds in one bedroom. One of them has 3 beds. So it's not working enough, like there's no space. It offers a 42-day gender-specific inpatient program. The inpatient program is the 6 weeks women's cycle, and then there's a break, short break, and then there's a men's cycle after that. In 2021-2022, Isuak Civic was able to support 33 guests. This is because of the pandemic, obviously. There was a couple of cycles that had to be canceled due to workers and guests getting COVID. And there is continued care services for guests, which is my position in Puvirnituk. I offer people that are going into the recovery center, I offer services to them, and then when after they receive the 7-week program in Kuujjuaq, when they're integrating back into the communities, I'm doing continued care for them if they want it, not forced. How am I on time? Good. So this is the big dream is for Nunavik to heal as a family, as a whole community, as a whole region. This new center is opening in, well, they're moving everything to the new office in January. The opening of the new center is still located in Kuujjuaq. there will be a bigger capacity to hold 22 adult guests at a time. It's going to be extended by 2 weeks. The program is going to be extended by 2 weeks, so 60-day healing and wellness inpatient program. There will be two bedrooms that are strictly always on open space for pregnant women who are seeking to go to the recovery center. This is to reduce the FASD service for women. There's also 32 family guest cycle. In between the women's cycle and the men's cycle, there's going to be families that will be able to go all together, because when you're trying to heal the addiction, like I said, the overcrowded housing is so prevalent that you cannot really stay well when you go back to your communities. So the focus is going to be on healing the family. The children will be able to go follow their mother. One of the person I had sent to Kuujjuaq was breastfeeding her baby, 2-month-old baby, and she was begging me, like asking, can I bring my baby? I'm breastfeeding. And I tried my best, like to make that possible, but it wasn't possible. So she had to leave her baby in the community to go seek help. So that's the main priority that Isuaq Civic will be covering, is to heal the whole family, to go through their healing journey together. And the first cycle is going to start in April 2023. Like I said, the whole center is moving in January, and all the assembly of everybody is settling down. We are very hopeful and excited because the first cycle is starting in 2023. Like I said, the outpatient counseling in certain communities like Puvirnituk, me working in Puvirnituk, Kangersuk, these are local Inuit people in these positions. So people will have a better transition going back into their communities after receiving the care that they need. During their time at Isuaq Civic, they're working on traditional values, connecting back to the land, to their culture, parenting, going over their history to better understand themselves. So there's a lot that's covered during that their time at Isuaq Civic. Yeah, Stephanie.
So I'm gonna take over and present my position as prevention, promotion, and addiction for Inuit Civic Health Center. I'm working up north since 2 years, since yesterday. So celebrating my 2 years. So just to explain a bit what is the mission of the prevention, because it's a big program with many aspects. Me, I'm specialized in addiction, but I have coworkers that are specialized in sexual violence prevention, others that are wellness workers, street workers. So we really work as a big group. In Puvirnituk, we're lucky enough to have that big team. So my position technically based in Puvirnituk, but I'm supposed to cover the whole coast. So you've seen on the map the big territory. There's no road, okay? So it's plane travel all the time. So supposed to do prevention in all those 7 communities of the Hudson Coast. The ideas of the prevention is really to adapt to every community of the Hudson Coast for the Inuit Civic Health Center, and to really try to adapt to each particularity, because in each community you're gonna go, it's gonna be different way of doing intervention, different priorities too, and we need to follow their rhythm. So if we look more particularly in addiction, well, we need to kind of find a balance between bringing new knowledge and updated and education, but also to respect that rhythm, because that doesn't mean because we have all that south knowledge that it's ready to be transferred north, also need to be adapted all the time. So it's really important to follow that rhythm and respect that rhythm. It's more important to connect with people. So that's, I will say, the baseline of my work. So it's really find a way to connect with Inuit, to connect with the workers, with everyone first, before even thinking about doing intervention. And in a sense, it's kind of doing intervention at the same time. So it's really the base. It's also important to support Inuit in their project more than to go into our intervention technique that we might learn at school and the knowledge that we have. For example, we're going to see further on, but the sobering up challenge, okay, which is a challenge of wanted to sober up or staying sober for all month. When we hear that here, it's really not something that we will be doing necessarily because of all the factor that we know about the withdrawals and everything. But when we go north, there's something a little bit more about the challenge. It's not necessarily about the substance use or anything, but it's the connecting people that want to go on a healing journey or that want to get better together. So even, for example, if a person relapses during that month, they're still in the challenge. So they're still all together and connected, okay? So there's that. We're going to see more about that challenge in a moment. We need to be super creative in informal activities. So doing supper, doing berry picking, every kind of activities that will bring, again, people together and give us an opportunity to bring up some topic around addiction, around substance use, around also values and all those things. And as Dolly mentioned, for the overcrowded house, it's important to open up safe space. So it means place that where people can go and they know that for that 2 hours, 3 hours, there won't be any substance use, any drinking, they will be able to just be relaxed, feel safe for a little while. If they want to talk, if they want to open up, they have us, but they can just be there and listen too. So creating those space, those moments of togetherness, it's really important. Good. So some example of activities that we do. For example, we have, well, don't know if you heard about that, but a big problem around gas sniffing with the youth. So the youth are sniffing gas. So especially spring, the peak of that. So in collaboration with Pituat Family House, we organize a gas sniffing sensitization evening. That means that we cook supper for the kids. We pass videos around the impact on the bodies and so of gas sniffing. We always have a translator in our activities to make sure that it can be translated in Inuktitut. So if the young and even the adult in the group, if they want to express themselves in their language, we make sure that it happens. So we have that kind of activities. When we did FASD Awareness Day, we literally baked 100 of cake. So it took us a whole afternoon to be able to reach out people to come and have coffee and cake together, and we can talk about the effect of FASD. So not only for the woman, but also for their spouse, their partner, that they can support each other's and all that. So we organized that. We had to face COVID in the past 2 years, so we needed to be even more creative because no gathering were permitted for a long time. So we organized a Valentine's Day window contest. The idea was to, because it was, well, South too, but North a really dark and negative, time with everybody stuck inside their home and stuff. So just to switch a little bit the state of mind, to make the family collaborate in the decoration, to try to be more in a positive state of mind, at least for that contest. It was really nice, like pretty much all windows in the community were covered with art and decoration. So it was really cool to walk around and see that. For Mother's Day, well, we organized breakfast because, well, the mothers are superwoman North, so they do pretty much everything. So we wanted to give them a little something, a little pause of cooking and doing everything. So we cook them breakfast for Mother's Day. For the youth, we often organize barbecue because information pass better with hot dogs. Okay? So again, it was for gas sniffing sensitization, but we didn't present it as it is for that. So it was an informal setting and occasion for the social worker that worked specifically with the youth to meet the population in a really informal and super chill with music, setting, and hot dog to pursue furthermore in activities. And in collaboration with the Dolly and Pitoit Family House, we organize, well, we're starting to do that now more and more, if the participants do agree, of course, a welcome back home supper with the one that have been at Histoire Civique in treatment and their families. Yeah, and their families. So it's a way to welcome them back in the community, to kind of do a little bit the bridge in between the treatment center. Also, we promote the support group. Again, we're going to talk furthermore about that in a few minutes. And to have, that nice and safe space with food and cake. We eat a lot North, okay? There's a lot of food involved in many activities. Yeah, pretty much all the time. Okay, so sobering up challenge. As I said, when I said it's important to follow the rhythm of the community, it's something that came from the community. So it's not Inuit Civic Health Center. It's really, well, the first one that I attended was in Puvernituk. It came from the municipality that wanted to do something because the problematic of drinking, more specifically for now, is really heavy. I would want to say was really heavy, but still really present nowadays in our communities. So what they had in plan first is to do a challenge where people can register and win big prizes at the end if they remain sober through the whole month, okay? During that month, they're not left alone at home doing that. So there's support group that are organized. Back then it was called Sober Club. We'll see the story of that because it changed name now for obvious reason. So support Sober Club, there was physical activities at the gym too that was organized, a sewing evening, contests on Facebook too for people that maybe couldn't come to the in-person activities. We kind of modify it for the other sobering up challenge that we've done in other community to break down the month. Instead of focusing on one big goal at the end of the month, there's weekly prizes based on the participation in activities more than the sober part. So it's really to try to find other coping skills that maybe has been lost with time because they are maybe too deep in addiction or too deep in the cycle of addiction. So that during that period, we do a lot of radio show too. Radio is not necessarily the same thing as here, so it's a super big thing North. Everybody listen to the radio. So doing radio show is that thing. So we organize with a nurse that come and talk about withdrawal. We talk about where are the resources they can reach out during that month. So we really try to make support system as efficient as possible to make sure that people that go through that journey feel that they're not alone. So that, and yeah, and as I said, even if they relapse during that month, they're allowed to be in the activities, they just cannot win the big prizes. And if you're wondering how we know if somebody relapsed or not, it's really based on trust, those challenges. So when they sign the contract at the, contract registration form at the beginning, we do ask them to come and talk to us if ever they relapse during the month. Also to kind of touch base of what happened and try to see where they are at. Yeah, and innovation from Dolly that was going to be this year because we're starting it in November, new one. Buddy system, so they are kind of pair with somebody so they can kind of check up on each other and support each other in the whole process. So it's really based, when I said on trust, they need to come and tell us if ever there's relapse. We don't do blood tests or other things, because it will really be quite intense, okay? And of course, well, nobody is left behind in the challenge. So far, is there a question or is it good? Thank you. So the objective, as I mentioned, is to really to give an opportunity to people that maybe have never tried to reduce or being sober, a chance to try it with the support of, well, pretty much all the services in the community. Again, it gives a sense of connection with each other, because when I say everybody, it's because communities, depending of which one we're in, but it's not like a million of people city. So it's really small, you know, community. So every people kind of know each other, so they can support and see for everyone. It opened up also discussion in the community around addiction, because it's kind of a, even if it's really present in every aspect of the life, addiction, drinking, substance use, it's still pretty taboo. So we talk about it, but we don't that much talk about it, if it kind of makes sense. So it's kind of two-speed intervention thing, but during that whole month, it's all based on that. So on what are the effects around drinking, substance use, the coping skills that can be done instead of drinking, harm reduction too is talked about. So really many aspects around that are open. And we also go to school to do some prevention activities with the youth too during that month. We try during many other months, but specifically there's many aspects that is covered. And also it connects people that will want to keep going in that journey. So for example, if during that month somebody is like, hey, I've been able to be 2 weeks sober, I would wish to try more, go further. Well, for example, they can go see Dolly, that will help them to maybe go to Histoire Civique or our addiction worker to at Inuit Civic Health Center. So it kind of make our services known more and more, and it gave a chance to connect and get more support after the challenge, because there's an after challenge too. The population is not left like that after that whole month, okay? So example of activities, when I said radio show, it's when, all the pictures is when we did the Sobering Up Challenge in Numeriac past March, I think, yeah. So radio show, we did a whole parade in the town for support for the participants. So with the firemen, people on skidoo, Honda even, the weather wasn't that bad, cars, and everybody was showing their support for the, we had, I think, 80 participants on a 500 people community, which is a lot. So everybody was showing support to the participant. Of course, food. Yeah. So community feasts are, feasts are organized with country food, which are the best. We have support groups. So here, because there was 80 participants, we did the support group in the gym. Maybe not the best setting, but we really wanted to give the opportunity to everybody that wanted to attend it to have a space. Okay. We organized a sewing and beading afternoon, so everybody was welcome to come and grab some material and pattern if they wanted to do work at home, or they could stay with us. It was really interesting. There's a lot of exchange, teaching, and it's really a great coping skills to reconnect with for most of the participants. And of course, North, beautiful sunset. For the one that missed it, yeah, good. Now the support group. So the support group came after the first Sobering Up Challenge in Puvernituk. The first name, as I said, was Sober Club. So to be more inclusive, we changed it, because we really want to target people that are maybe not there to be sober, or maybe they will never be there, and that's totally fine. But if they feel that they want to learn more, or they want at least to have that evening of not drinking or not using, they have that space. So support group is, it's actually Dolly, I think, that find the name. That is the more, yeah, that was, for months we were trying to find a name until she came up with that one. I think it's what is described it the better. It's the fact that we all support each other during that evening. So it's once a week. It's in between an hour and a half to 2 hours, depend of the topic. We kind of have a time frame, but not that much because we really want to give that space to the people. Every topic is decided according to what the participant wants or what they feel that they need to know or to learn about. Also, we go through what happened in the communities. For example, if there's been a traumatic death, we might go a little bit more into the grieving process. So we really try to adjust to the events, but also to the participant. That means that for almost a year, we've been creating weekly all workshop. So that's quite a lot of work. Yeah. Every session, there's babysitters, translator, and of course, we provide coffee, tea, and snacks. Babysitters, it's to ensure that we reduce the obstacle to attend the groups. Because, for example, if women, they have like the kids with them and everything, well, they might decide to stay home with nobody to watch the kids during those evening. And of course, during like a support group or therapeutic session with your kids in the same space, maybe not the best setup. So there's a daycare in the building. We're lucky enough, we have a great building in Puvernituk with daycare where the kids are with babysitters while the time that we're doing the group. Yeah, and at the translator, super important. As I mentioned before, is because if they want to express themselves, well, we encourage for sure in Inuktitut to make sure that they can do so. They don't feel forced to talk in English because as we know, the emotion, it's easier in our first language. So sometimes English is the second or even the third language that they speak. And also to make sure that I can follow and understand during the whole thing. So yeah, and we have a great one in Puvernituk. The objective, again, is to give a space outside of home where there is no substance use and that people can all be together in the moment. A lot of exchange around addiction, a topic during that evening. Even the, how can I call them? I don't want to say soft evening, but some evenings, sometimes we're kind of only doing sewing and beading, but it's open discussion. So during those times, people are free to talk or not talk and bring up any topic that they want. And even during those evening, there's a lot of topics around addiction, family relationship, and everything that come up. So yeah, so that's a space where they can express themselves in really a safe environment. Again, we don't force people to talk, so we have some participants that just come and listen, and that's perfectly fine too. So yeah, that's the space. So example of workshop that we've done so far, there's been a movie night, so it's a documentary that's been project in that we project an open discussion. The documentary, if you want to watch it, is My Village in Nunavik, so it's available in l'Office National du Film. I'm going to say it in French, it's going to be easier. It's been filmed in Puvernituk in 1998, so what it brings up interesting, it's again that principle of reconnected with their history, their culture and values. So all the discussion after that, it was around people that were in that documentary, because there was pretty young people that are now my co-workers that we saw as kids in that documentary. So it brings up a lot of fun discussion and a fun, interesting topic afterward. Of course, there's been information around the impact of the substance on the body and the brain. We did an exercise, it's called the Lifeline exercise. So all ideas of that, it's a bit based on the narrative therapy. So it's to see all that we've been through in our life, the obstacle, but to also outline by the flowers the positive things that we have around us. So the ideas of that, because again, when we're in addiction, when it's really the negative that come up when we talk, but it's also to switch focus a little bit on people that supported us, a beautiful event in our life, and to try to balance that and sharing if they're, okay? Okay. Yeah, and sharing, if they're comfortable to share their journey, to share their journey too, because storytelling is, well, it's a big piece in the North, so sharing journey, sharing, learning by that, it's pretty big. Nice activity, so berry picking and berry picking time. Again, we try to adapt to culture and practice. So starting August, okay, starting August, good luck to have people to come in evening activities because it's berry picking time, pretty big. Everyone is in the land after work picking berries. So we organize a support group doing that activities with, again, a little picnic, little discussion, beautiful sunset, beautiful setup. So that's how we did adapt. We also did a workshop around the grieving process and link with addiction cycle, of course, intergenerational trauma, and again, link with addiction, emotion regulation. So far, I counted it, and we have 18 different workshops that has been created, adapt culturally to answer the wants and needs of the support group we're running. Dolly and I, by the way, I'm not doing that alone. It's a big, yeah, because of her, but we're running this since a year now. So that's, thank you. Another big work that Dolly and I have been, well, yeah, working on this year is the On the Land project. So it's to go on the land during 5 days camping to do a healing workshop. We were lucky enough to add that the workshop were given in Inuktitut by the Inuit facilitator from the Inuit Value and Practice Department. Do you want to mention it? Yeah. So they came with us on the land. We worked on the workshop together, and we kind of balanced the whole. It was 1 day trip, 3 days workshop, and another day trip, just to give you an idea of the time frame. During those 3 days, it wasn't workshop from 9 to 5. Okay, it was really balance in between giving free time to the participant that they can enjoy and reconnect with the land. Of course, you're going to see later the setting is beautiful, but also doing cultural activities. So again, sewing, beading, berry picking, preparing fish and meat and everything. So we try to balance all those things with the healing workshop. Again, there was a translator there the whole time and babysitters to give the mothers, we say the mothers because it was women for that on the land specifically, so women's only. So to give them a chance to attend the workshop with full presence and concentration and not thinking about kids and everything. Yeah, so again, free time on the land. The objective is to reconnect with traditional knowledge and value on that space. Again, to create safe space to open up discussion and really go through the roots, because when we're doing that in the support group setting, we don't have that much time. So if there are things that open up during those sessions, it gives us a certain time frame. But when we're on the land, we have those 3 days, 4 days together. They really have the times to go deeper, maybe in the problematic, and to get the help and support that they needed, because we were like a whole team of counselor around them during that week. And again, because you've seen the, the overcrowded house and everything, and being on the land far from the community, it's really a moment to focus on themselves. So there's not the distraction of what happened to the radio, what happened there, and this and that. They can really take the time for them, okay? So some pictures of our trip. So,
Maybe.
yeah.
You can, like, as you can see here, we were sleeping in traditional tents. You can see there the one that I made 5 years ago. Like one of the ladies said she hadn't slept in a tent in over 20 years, so it was like kind of unbelievable for her. Like she felt like she was on cloud nine, even though we were talking about heavy subjects each day. So it's just like, even though we're in our small communities, people are still very disconnected to their culture, and just doing this, it made them, by the time we left, everybody was so lifted, everybody was so thankful, even though we didn't think we did a huge job, and even when we came back home, people were still messaging me like, thank you so much. By the time we ended the on the land camping, like you can see here, the woman with her daughter, and we had 2 elder as guides. So this is like multi-generational teaching happening right there. It was like, my heart. Yeah, so that was, we need to reconnect people to their, yeah, it's good to talk about like technical stuff about addiction to them, like, yeah, that's one part of it, but the other part is because they're so disconnected, and even though they think they're not affected by everything that happened, they start to realize more and more, okay, maybe I was affected by the dog slaughter. Maybe I was affected by my mother going to residential school. Maybe that's why she's not as affectionate to me as I would have liked. Like, there's many things. So, yeah, this was a beautiful experience this summer.
So to pass time, sometimes we play cards, and if you go on the land, you have probably the chance to play cards. That's a thing. With a 6 years old, and believe me, you're never gonna win. Even if you understand the rules and everything, you're never gonna win. Okay. Other moment of our trip, so play games. It's a big thing, and it's really, really fun to play games with Inuit. Believe me, it's like screaming and yelling and laughing a lot. It looks calm, not that calm in real life, okay? Do you want to? Okay. So a lot of picnic, that's the best food again. You want to talk about the site we were in?
Maybe I'll talk. The land, the camping ground that we left is in between Puvirnituk and Inutjuaq, the southern community of Puvirnituk, which is called Hagihuktuk, which means, like I said, Inuit were nomadic. This region, this camping ground was Hagihuktuk means Hagik, meeting grounds, where they gather. So people would gather from everywhere, from their camping grounds, and they would meet here, play games, exchange, and they would leave back to their wherever they were following the migration. So it was very connecting back to the land. Also, we had men guides who were hunting every day. So there was like maybe 4 caribous in there. And this specific night, we gutted and cleaned maybe like 130 fish that evening. So everybody from the camp, when we leave back home, in our culture, we share. Our culture is a very sharing culture. So every single person that was at this camp, we allotted like 1 fish, everybody got caribou meat, everybody got fish, everybody got fish roll, everybody got every single game that they caught. They were able to bring back to their communities, to their homes, and feed their families. So they were very grateful for that too, because they don't have access to country food. Yeah, that was another appreciated part of this camp.
So again, you can see eating setup. So that was a really, really windy trip. We don't hear it, but 100-ish kilometer wind. Okay, so we were eating that picnic. The other pictures is the day the wind was okay, but most of the time we were eating like that in a tent, so all together. I'm gonna now pass to Alexi to explain the second line in addiction.
Hi. All right. So thank you, Dolly and Stephanie. It's really fun working with them. So just as a starter, I'm the clinical advisor for the second line addiction for the Inuit Civic Health Center. First off, it's important to understand that the second line intervention team is pretty new. So the project started in 2017 when the Khanulir Pita survey went across the 14 communities in Nunavik to question on all the different aspects of the lifestyle. One of the aspects that was interviewed was about substance use and addiction. What was the finding is that substance use has been and remains an important challenge for Nunavik communities, especially for youth that are particularly at risk because of the high prevalence of substance use and the higher risk for excessive or problematic use. So once they had those findings, it was hard for the health center not to address this problem, because prior to that, there were regular services that were working, supporting the families with the addiction problem, but there was not a specific team that was specialized for that. So when I said that it's pretty new, it's at the end of 2019 that the teams was put in place by Director of the Community Service, Mata Putugu, with Steve Kelly, Assistant Director, Mario Lapointe, Chief of Program, and Rosemary Leblanc, who was clinical advisor at that time, and just wanted to, she's not here today, sadly, but I wanted to give her a little props because she's the one who really developed the program with the help of all those directors. They decided at the end of 2019 to put in place human resources to specialize in the treatment of addiction through the CLC program on the Hudson Coast. So, yeah, the objectives of that team is to give access to culturally adapted readaptation service that would be accessible for the 7 villages of the Hudson Coast. Just to be clear, we're not there yet. It's the objective, but that's the goal we're heading towards. Offer quality follow-ups with clients, facilitate the access to services, services that are on the territory, but also outside of the territory, knowing that not all the services are accessible. Support and guide other services to face the challenge associated with the interventions in the addiction field. Once again, we would like to have workers in every community to have that specialization. The reality is that we're not there. We're far from there. So we are looking also to give a bit counseling service to people who are in the other communities who are facing those complex difficulties. And mainly, and that's what we're gonna try to work really hard, is to work in synergy with the other services that are addressing the problematic of addiction, meaning my partner here. Originally, I think we were all developing our own base on our own, but we're starting and going to the direction of all working together more and more with different actors. I'm seeing Elizabeth also for the regional health board. It's really important facing these complex difficulties and the lack of resources to all work together. We can go way further, way faster. Yeah, so the clients that we're taking in our program are mostly adults, 25 years and up, pretty equally balanced between men and women. We recently started a couple months ago to offer youth services. So our youth services are in the between 12 and 24. That's how we tried to create services, but mainly in any community where there is an addiction worker from our team, anyone can come and ask through the intake process to receive services, and they will receive services. All right, so just last spring, we faced a bit of a overcrowding demand because of one of our employee gave his resignation. So we had to accumulate a lot of clients, which made us had to make the difficult choice to have a waiting list. Was the first time, and then we had to also implement prioritization criteria. Just so you know, there is no more waiting list right now. So we faced that crisis, and now we're back on track. But it's hard time, you know, to not be able to give services to people who are mobilizing themselves. We know that it's a critical moment when the person asks for help, and not to be able to respond is a challenge, but we're back on track. Our prioritization is first off pregnant women that are using one or multiple psychoactive substances. We are also including women that are intending to become pregnant. We will prioritize them, parents of young children that are using, and also adolescents or young adults. Yeah, as I said, there is no more waiting lists at this moment, so yeah, we're good. The approaches during our follow-up, I'll go quickly. I know we've been here since yesterday, and a lot of people explained the harm reduction. I know most of you know pretty well, so I don't need to explain it too much. The important thing, though, is to explain that we're working with a lot of flexibility to adapt to the need and the rhythm of the client. The global approach is harm reduction. The main approaches that we're gonna try to implement is motivational approach. A lot of time we're dealing with ambivalency towards change. That's the approach that has been the best proven to address this situation. And it has also proven effective with both adults and teenagers. And the systemic approach. As we know, a lot of difficulties for people who are getting treatment is that they're working on themselves, but then they're going back home and the problem is still ongoing. So we're trying to develop more and more the intervention in the families with the systems that are supporting the person, either that are maybe putting them more at risk of relapse, or that are already supporting them to stimulate the strength in the environment. All right. All right, services we offer. Mainly, our services are individual seance with a counselor. People come through the social services structure, so they need to go to the social services building, and then they will meet the intake worker. The intake worker will assess their need and their demand, and then they will be referred to our services with the good and the bad aspect that this represent. We'll address that later. Once they are referred, our follow-up lasts between 6 months to a year usually, but considering the reality of the worker going in vacation, flying in, flying out, it can go up to 2 years easily. We've seen longer, we've seen shorter. It's just generally, we try to give the services 6 months to a year. The reality we face during our follow-ups are a lot of people that are referred through court orders to receive treatment for their addiction problem. Through this, we need to adjust our positioning and meeting them where they're at when we're talking about their motivation. Working with the motivational approach, external versus internal, work with that ambivalency and try to stimulate, accompany them, go as far as we can for the moment that they're mobilized. And then we know that sometimes they're gonna disengage a bit with the follow-up, and it's okay. And they might come back, and with the quality that we're trying to implement, we're gonna be able to pick back up where we left off as much as possible, depending on the situation of the client. Yeah, so basically what I describe is a bit the cycle of addiction, you know, mobilizing, seeing, but worker vacation also is a problem. And, you know, a reality that's not as common here in the southern part of the province, but that can be a reality is the seasonal influence. So you can have a follow-up that's really picking up speed and going well, and then the client decides to go camping, hunting, going back on the land for traditional activity for the whole summer. And that's just a reality. It's a positive thing for most people, so we're gonna support it. But for a clinician that is trying to build this caseload, it can create challenges. Other services that, in the services that we offer, the structure of the follow-up is pretty much classic, but when we think that it's a classic and it's taken, we make a mistake because it's not a cultural referent that the whole structure of a follow-up. So that's why we need, so the referral comes through the intake, but the most important thing is the first meeting. That first meeting will really be able to put the base on how you can explain the journey that's ahead through a follow-up. Can you explain in a language that's gonna be understand it? Because as Dolly told me, a lot of time people will say, we will ask, do you understand? And they say yes, 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 but then afterward, they didn't really understand. So there's a compliancy that is not transparent and authentic. So how can we really adapt our language and accompany through that process the client that wants help towards addiction? So first meeting, really important. We need to explain the evaluation process. It is invasive to ask all those questions, but at the same time, it is really important to at first be able to have an honest view of the situation, because we know that there's going to be cycles of people coming in and then disengaging and coming back, but also there's a big turnover of workers, and we want to avoid people repeating that story on and on. It's been said and it's been said again. It creates a stigma, it creates a distance with and a resistance towards going to services. So that's why we want to have this evaluation once, a good one, and then if the people comes back after it's done, we don't start again that evaluation process. It comes back to, I don't see anyone from the Mazda project yesterday, but it's in the same idea. The people that are working with addiction often needs to retell their story on and on. We want to try to avoid that as much as possible. After that, you know, intervention plan, try to really get the agreement, and I think also for the intervention plan, I'm thinking about the presentation of Wise Choices. Yesterday, I commented on how you can work for people appropriating themselves their means and their objectives, and so as I said, we're starting this project. It's pretty new. We're finishing our 3rd years of services, and we want to continue getting better. So I see a lot of things today and yesterday that are really going to be helpful. So Yeah. Then we try to put the active follow-up. Depending on their objectives, we will adjust what we put in place. Sometimes it's to work in their community. Sometimes they want to have access to a treatment center, which will be probably my next point. Yeah, one of our big demand of service is support and help in reference to treatment center, such as Histoire Civique and Portage. For Histoire Civique in Puvernituc, Dolly takes a lot of reference. So we will work with Dolly, or either a lot of people in the community feel more comfortable going with her. But for clients that are already in our follow-up and through that process would feel comfortable to start the reference process, we'll work in collaboration. We also work with Portage. There has been a reference with the Onentoken Healing Lodge in Oka. I know there are a lot of other treatment centers in Quebec. We've worked with others. Those are the three mains that we are referring to. The big particularity is that people mainly speak English, so it must be an English available treatment center. And also the Nunavik Regional Board of Health has the mandate to go and take contact with those centers and create a service corridor. So, and I don't see Philippe here now, but Philippe Goring also, if you know, and Elizabeth. 10 minutes? No? Oh, no. 20. All right. Sorry. So yeah, we support the people through the referral process, which is often organized via computer, internet, phone calls, meeting, and we try to facilitate. It's always the person who needs to mobilize themselves, and we support the person in their needs. Sometimes in the middle of the process, they will decide to fall back, and it's okay too. Another thing that's important to think about is that, as Stephanie said, the territory is hard to access. It's all by plane. And once you arrive by plane, let's say it's a center that's outside of Nunavik, you arrive in Montreal, then what happens? All those logistics must be taken care of prior. You cannot arrive and just say, oh, we'll take it from there. You know, it's need to be reassured that if they are not picked up at the airport, there's a hotel that's already been paid and there's ready for them. Who's going to pick them up the day after until they go? Is it the center that takes care of the transport, or is it somebody from Ulivik Center in Montreal? When they're done, you know, there's going to be a follow-up during the therapy to see how it's going. But once it's done, who arranged? We pay for the ticket. Who, you know, seems like it would be clear that it's has to be done, but when you're into it, it's a bit complex, you know. Yeah, continuation of support while the client is in treatment, and also, as I said earlier, the services we offer is the clinical support and addiction for the worker in communities where there isn't an addiction worker, by teaching principle of harm reduction in a culturally adapted approach. And once again, the Nunavik Regional Board of Health is on that mandate too, so it's going to be a collaboration. All right, so future project, I'm going to refer to some of you that are here today. So first, the support group in the community. My colleagues here have created a lot of content, and what we would like is, as I said, to work in synergy with them in the communities where they're present, to maybe participate a bit, to learn from their great, you know, formula that seems to be working really well, and also maybe to inspire ourselves from their content to in communities that they don't have a group running. Which leads to my second point, increased collaboration with the prevention promotion team by participating in workshops and activities that are organized. offer individual or family counseling for the people living with a person struggling with addiction. People who weren't there yesterday, this A1. So, you know, I'm gonna bring this back with me and start implementing, you know, working towards that. Yeah, implementation of culturally adapted harm reduction program in communities where we offer services. As we said, we work in collaboration with the Prevention and Promotion Team, as well as the Nunavik Regional Board of Health and Social Services. It's fun that everybody's here in the room, so. Participation in cultural adaptation of evaluation tool on the field. I know we've been approached for adaptation of the DEPADO for the youth. But that's one of the big struggle too. We've got some evaluation tools that are standardized, but they're not necessarily culturally adapted. And with the language barriers and the reference barriers, for some of our clients, we're going to use the same that was used for Hanulir Pita survey, which is the cage for question. But I mean, it's good, but it's pretty short and limited. We have worked with the DEBA, but it's quite complex and not necessarily adapted culturally for the language barriers and everything. So we try to adapt from clients to clients, but we want to participate with the research into developing adapted evaluation tools that are going to end up, you know, giving better access to services that are adapted. Yeah, we're trying to develop partnership also with schools. Same mindset, support teams facing the hardship of addiction. We recently thought of expanding the youth team into some street work approach. So going to see the youth in the street where they're hanging out and get contact, try to destigmatize the services and the approach so that if they ever need, they feel more comfortable coming to see the person in which they created a positive link. And finally, develop partnerships with other organizations to implement interventions linked to nature and adventure for youth population. There's a group called the Jeunes Caribou, organize intervention through adventure. And we are in discussion on how we can pick up on organize in synergy with them some activities. All right, so I've spoken a lot. I'm gonna give the microphone back to my colleagues to talk about challenges of working in addiction. It's me who starts. Sorry about that. All right, quickly, some of the challenges most of the people who have heard of working in Nunavik will be in the know that retention of workers, either Southerners or Inuit, is a big challenge. I will let Dolly speak a bit more of the reality of the workers, the local staff, but I know that for the Southerners, a lot of the situation with the rotation, the fly in, fly out, it's affecting them to stay for a while. A lot of them come for, they have an idea of a shorter time to address, and it's okay too, but it creates a problem for the rotation and the impact that the rotation has on the services and the relationship with the community. Also, the model of the fly in, fly out, which is usually 9 weeks and then 4 weeks out back to the south of the province, is creating a lot of problem with the episode of services because, well, obviously you get a break, but our team is financed, it's a technical thing, but we're not financed to be replaced during our vacation. So there's just a hole for a month. So that's problematic. But I will let Dolly speak a bit about the condition of work for the Inuit workers.
I'm just gonna go over them quick so we can go over questions if we have, like, quickly after. Organization and services. there's a lack of support for the local staff. I just wanted to say if there's any First Nations here working in addiction, I am so thankful for you because I know the weight that we carry because we're so attached to wanting our people to be better. I know it's hard. So I just wanted to say thank you. Having to pass by more than one worker, like he was saying over and over, okay, this new non-Inuit person, I have to tell my story to again, to get referred to another person, say it again, that's a big challenge. Makes nobody want to seek help after saying it 100 times and nothing's being done. The structure of services is complex and hard to understand. The language barrier, like the person will say, yeah, I understand. And then they come to me and I ask, like, what's going on? Do you know where you are? Do you know when your next court date is? Do you know when your next visit is with your child? If you're in the DYP system, rarely do they ever know fully about what's going on with their files, their lives, basically. Yeah, so maybe I'll just go over it quickly. Clients and workers relation, of course, language barrier. It's hard to talk about how you feel in a different language. You're translating and trying to ask yourself if you're saying the right word. Difficulties of explaining the services. Like we said, nobody, Inuit don't really understand the services that they've been dropped into, like the incarceration system, the youth protection system. So, yeah. Needs and development. Human resources. All those stuff we said we're lacking, we need more of. The most important is always to have translator. If you're planning anything with First Nation or Inuit people, make sure, don't even ask your clients, like, do you need a translator? Always have a translator there so that it reduces the need for people to say, like, hey, I don't understand. They don't want to feel dumb. So have that always as your number one priority. Stepping away from the institutionalized ways of intervention and go more into the community-based approach. Like, each community always has like different nuances per each community. What works in Puvirniduk will not necessarily work in Opaluk, which is 300, 400 population versus 1,700 population. So get to know your community. Development of the services for youth and group offers. Yeah, this explains itself basically. The development for the future. Our wish is to have a building, like Alexi was saying, that if a client comes, he has to go to the social service building, which was previously the DYP building. It's very triggering to even step foot in that place for most of the population. And the doors are locked. Like, you have to be carried through to that specific place, office. It would be our dream to have all our services available in one building where there's proper safe spaces, confidential spaces to meet with clients. You want to go?
So just in conclusion of the presentation, it's important to keep in mind that even the smallest intervention can have a high impact. As an example of that, because when we're in intervention in the north, we don't see those little moments, but I was doing an activities in another community than Puvernituk with the population, and one of the women there really felt comfortable to open up to me, share her whole life story and all our journey through addiction, really heavy road, I will say. And we create like a good link and everything. And remember that my position, I have to travel, so I cannot stay as an addiction worker in a community. So it's always been clear that I will have to go back to Puvernituk. So I finish the workshop there. I go back to Puvernituk. I see that woman maybe a week after, super angry at me because I left again. So I'm another Southerner leaving, and she felt angry that she opened up to me. And for sure, for a counselor, it's really hard to take. I think you can imagine. So I mean, talk with her. It stays kind of like that. I see her, I think 5 or 6 months later in another community. That woman haven't really been sober through her whole life. And she was something like a month and a half sober at the moment where I saw her. And she mentioned, like, she gave me a big hug, so completely different from when I saw her again in Puvernituk. Gave me a big hug. She was super grateful of that talk we had back in March in that community. It really hit me at that moment that the little seed that we plant a little bit everywhere really made a difference. So even if you have one person in your group, north, well, even south, it could be the same thing, but thank you. Specifically north, that one person needed to be at that place at that moment, so you're making a difference for her or him. So again, I'll come back to human connection side of the intervention. Do you want me to continue or you want? Yeah. So being aware that we all have a common goal, the one that work in addiction, and again, work together toward that goal instead of, oh, that's my field and so on. So really the togetherness of the thing, and accepting that everyone is different and that everyone you're working with has something to offer, even if it's small. It makes the common goal a success at the end. So if ever you want to learn more about what Dolly talked about and topics, you have some link right there if you want to. Specifically to Nunavik. Okay. So, Nakomik, thank you. Yeah, so you have kind of 5 minutes for a question. If you have question, comments, and I'm gonna go look. Ah, okay, there's nothing. Good.
Okay, so I have two small questions, one linked to another. You said that comme English, French, both.
French is okay.
French. Actually, okay. Que les plus grandes substances consommées étaient alcool et gaz. En fait, je me demandais s'il y en avait d'autres, puis aussi par rapport à the harm reduction. Do you have like safe supply or something that you give to people, or what? Yeah.
First part of the question was about the substance. For youth, you mean? Just to be sure. For youth? At school? À l'école?
Ouais, ou tout le monde.
Non, mais c'est juste pour savoir le groupe d'âge que tu avais.
Ouais, ben mettons for youth.
OK.
Ouais.
So I'll answer in French. Dans le fond, c'est juste que pour l'instant, ce qui est ciblé, c'est surtout le gas sniffing. Donc, c'est ce qu'on voit le plus dans la communauté, surtout au printemps, été, au dégel, finalement. De plus en plus, malheureusement, il y a l'arrivée de substances un peu plus chimiques, donc de drogues dures, fait que speed, ecstasy, et j'en passe, là, parce qu'il y a comme des dérivés de. C'est présent, de plus en plus présent, tristement. C'est pas ce qui est central pour l'instant. On est encore plus au niveau gas sniffing, but cannabis aussi. Beaucoup, très présent. Donc, on est en train de développer, dans le fond, des façons de reach out ces personnes-là, parce que souvent, ceux qui vont se tourner vers ça sont pas nécessairement à l'école non plus. Ils sont d'âge scolaire, mais sont pas à l'école. Fait que c'est comment est-ce qu'on peut essayer de comme les rejoindre quand même. Mais là, c'est un peu ce qu'Alexis nommait. Ce qu'on a nommé, c'est le travail un peu plus de street work dans les communautés. Là. Ouais. Est-ce que ça...
Oui, ça
sens?
répond quand même.
Merci.
Ouais, merci.
Nakormik, thank you very much. It was really interesting, and I was really moved by all the work you do and all what's have to be done also. It's nice challenges, and you seem like a nice team. I had a question. Actually, I'm really interested. I work with youth with addiction problems, but specialize with on-the-land therapies. So I was interested to hear you about the link you see with addiction problems and intergenerational traumas and the need of healing on the land. And if it was a perspective in your future services or if you heard about it in the community-based needs. I don't know if my question is clear. Thank you.
Yeah, like I was saying, all the traumatic things that happen in our region are just recently starting to be talked about. Even if you go into the schools and talk about this stuff to the high school students, they don't even know, like they have no idea, because who wants to talk about that, their dinner table to their kids, you know? So everybody is in a basically learning process, transition process. The more and more people that are starting to talk about it, the more we'll be able to address it. So that's, it's just starting to open up. Yeah. Is it good? Yeah. Any more questions, comments? That's what we're doing in Puvirnituk. Thank you.